You feel as though you have something valuable to offer towards people. You strategize how you want to go about providing your knowledge or demonstrating your skills, and the more you play out the possibilities in your mind, you find yourself starting to look for excuses to downplay your worth. A repetitive cycle continues to emerge. You forget about pursuing your interests, and months, perhaps even years pass by before you begin to feel a sense of unfulfillment and lack a sense of meaning in your life again. You pick yourself back up and conclude that you need to follow your passion. However, every time you seem to come back to a mental barricade just shy of publicly exposing yourself, imposter syndrome creeps back in, anxieties of what your friends and family may start to think of you re-emerge, fears of people thinking I've changed or preferring the old version of me. You shy away from the potential embarrassment of failing. This occurs over and over again. I'm well aware that having this perspective and this way of thinking can be extremely problematic. This was a cycle that went around in my head like time and time again before I finally took the plunge and started my YouTube channel. But it wasn't just a YouTube channel, this was something that's been going on for years. Not just stuff I wanted to start, but just generally having a bit of concerns and anxiety of what people think about me. And this can be extremely problematic simply because I think in the culture we live in now, where social media is quite prevalent and we post pictures and videos on Instagram, for example, and what tends to happen, in my personal opinion, you get those videos or pictures that do well, you get a lot of likes, you get a lot of validation, and it makes you feel good, you get a big dopamine rush. The problem is when you put those videos or pictures out and you don't get the validation that you're expecting or that you think the video deserves, for example, then you're going to feel bad and those anxieties are going to creep back in. But what you're essentially doing here is putting your happiness in other people's hands, meaning that you can't have any control over your happiness. And so this can't be a good thing, right? So having this judgment of other people thinking about what does he think or who does he think he is now, for example, which was something in my case that was quite prevalent. You're often told a lot of cliches or quotes when you're growing up. You can be anything you want to be, these types of things, and this was something that didn't really internalise with me. Like, it didn't resonate in my head. Like, I intellectually understood it, but I couldn't feel it in myself. I didn't feel like I could be anything I wanted to be, if that makes sense. So I want to tell you exactly how I got over those fears. And one biggest thing for me, this is obviously a fitness channel, and I don't think it's a coincidence that I got over these fears through a type of fitness. So anyone that knows me personally, I'm a massive fan of mixed martial arts. I watch all the UFC events and different MMA events, and I had a bit of background when I used to live in Birmingham. I never competed, but I had a bit of experience in striking martial arts, a bit of boxing and kickboxing, but I didn't have any experience in terms of grappling martial arts like wrestling or jiu-jitsu, for example. And one thing, like what I do, I'll proper geek out when I watch MMA. Like, sometimes I'll listen to it without any of the sound on, so I put the sound on mute so that I can like concentrate on the technique a bit. It's well geeky, I'm well aware of it, but it's something that I do, and I couldn't grasp it. It's kind of easy to follow when you're watching MMA, like when it's on the feet. Most people can follow it, like the striking, who's winning, but when the fight goes to the floor, it's much more difficult to understand what's going on, because there's certain chains that happens when people are setting up submissions or different things, escapes you can do. So I didn't know anything about this style of martial arts, so I took up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu just so that my experience when I was watching mixed martial arts, when I was watching them on TV, it was a little bit more immersive and I kind of understood what was going on in the fights a little bit better. So that was the first time I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so I kind of stumbled upon this theory really, so bear with me. So I remember going to my first class of non-gi Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So you don't get belts scored in non-gi, just for anyone that doesn't know. So it's essentially mimicking grappling for mixed martial arts. So the coaches would show you holes in certain positions for striking and whatever, where normal Jiu-Jitsu tends to, you could be in a dominant position off your back if you have someone in your guard, for example, basically meaning that you have your legs wrapped around it on your back. But there's a few holes for striking if it was for MMA, so it's a little bit different, and you don't get belts scored. But I remember going to my first class and I understood that there was a bit of a process, obviously, to getting better at it, but I still thought I'd be at a certain level. And I went to my first class, and I'll never forget it because I was speaking to this lad a little bit, it happened to be speaking to him before the class, and he was 17, probably about my height, but he was really skinny, and I was going to the gym at this moment of time, so I had a little bit of muscle mass on me, so I thought I was quite strong for my weight class. And when we started, like, I'll have no exaggeration, I like soon realised how much of a bitch I was. I got submitted about 10 times within about 10 minutes. So this like young lad, I was about 22, 23 at the time. I was like, whoa, I am a pussy. But I didn't like this feeling of this young lad like being able to like absolutely beat me up and there'd be nothing I could do. Like, I just felt like I was a passenger in this situation. But it was really eye-opening for me, so completely like, it was an ego death, if you like. I could no longer think I was like relatively good at this, like, because it was just proved to me that I'm shit at it. I'm a complete beginner, even though I thought I'd be kind of good as a beginner. Now I'm a beginner, I'm shit. So I realised that I had to put the time in to get better at this, so I just kept showing up, going a minimum of 2 times per week, every week, continuously kept showing up. I started to watch YouTube videos online of different stuff, like researching techniques of how I could get better. So I was kind of learning about how to learn, if you like, if that makes sense. So I kept showing up, and probably about 6 months down the line, I wasn't really thinking about I'm getting good. I was just thoroughly enjoying my experience and like enjoying the process of starting to like work out puzzles myself. That's kind of what happens in jiu-jitsu. It's so technical that someone who's lighter than you, if they have much more technique, they can control you. So you have to get technical at it in order to get good. So I started watching these videos, and I remember one time I had a particularly good day, and I happened to be one of the pro fighters that was taking hold of the class. So the 2 coaches would often corner pro fighters around the world. The coaches one week had to go abroad to corner one of their pro fighters' fights. So one of the pro fighters took the jiu-jitsu class that I attended, and I remember like, I was on form this particular day, and I caught a few nice submissions. I was progressing and controlled a few guys that were heavier than me as well. So I was overall quite happy with it. It was an enjoyable session, and after the session what tends to happen is the person who takes the class, everyone will go up, shake their hand and thank them, whatever. And I happened to be one of the last people to go up to like shake his hand, so I was on the other side of the mat. So like, I thanked him, and I think I was the last person. I walked away, and as I was walking away, like, he called me back, like, asked me what my name was and everything, and then asked me how long I'd been doing it. I said about 6 months, and he was like, oh, you're quite good, like, you know, keep going, keep showing up, that type of thing. So then I soon, like, I was like, oh my god, like, it reminded me, it was almost like a light bulb moment where I kind of, like, that thing of you can be good at anything you want to be good at. This person kind of validated me, if you like, because when you start naturally, you don't have a lot of confidence about something when you're a beginner in anything, right? So when I had this validation, I soon realised that I can get good at anything I want to, because I remembered how shit I was on the very first day when I was getting submitted by this 17-year-old non-stop with a ponytail as well. I kept getting triangled, for anyone that knows what that is. So I was just like getting so frustrated. But it was good for me. It was good that I was with this person. It was an eye-opener. So I kind of internalised this theory, this cliche, you can get good at anything you want to, and this massively grew my confidence, where these moments in time before I started my YouTube channel that I wanted to get a little bit more active on Instagram, and I wanted to start a YouTube channel. These times where I would have pussied out or bitched out at the final step, I didn't do it this time around, because my confidence grew, because I appreciated that there was a process. So in my head I thought, I'm bound to be like really bad at making videos. These are my first videos, I'm a beginner, my videos should be of a beginner level. So when I started, like when I learnt this from doing martial arts, I realised I could do this in any context that I wanted to, and it massively grew my confidence, because I wasn't bothered about what people thought of me now, really, because I appreciated that there is a process. So anyone that judged me for how bad I was now, like, these people probably don't have a lot going on in their life, and they're probably something they're insecure about. So this reminds me when I was doing an apprenticeship that I started when I was 16 years old, and I was in a little bit of a dead-end job in this particular time. Like, I hated my job, I hated the people that I worked with, like they just didn't care about you, kind of backstab you all the time. If anything went wrong, they'd blame me, and I remember just hating this job I was in. I couldn't wait to leave, but I couldn't leave because I couldn't afford my tuition fees. So in my apprenticeship, it was in my contract that if I left within like X amount of years, I would have had to pay my like £8 tuition fees, and I couldn't afford it, so I felt trapped. And I remember one of my mates I was speaking to, and he told me he had this pay rise, and you should be happy that your mates have pay rises. and he told me he had a pay rise, and I just remember my instinctive feeling was like, I didn't like it. I didn't like that he told me that, and I thought I was showing off. But I only thought that because of my insecurities that I hated my job. So in a way that I was like envious or jealous, if you like. So I'm thinking like selfishly, and I think that's what a lot of people do. If they aren't happy, they naturally see someone else doing something that they think in their head that they're better than, which is like generally what happens when you're getting a little bit egotistical, when you're comparing yourself mostly to people. Generally you're getting in your ego a little bit. So these people that judge people, naturally it's going to be an insecurity on their part, not anything that you're doing wrong. So this was one thing I learned. And as well, when I had this confidence that I could get good at anything, the confidence of what people thought of me went down as well, because I wasn't scared about what these people thought of my videos, because I'm a beginner. So that fear completely went away, if you like. That completely invalidates someone's opinion. So all this like, inner chatter you have, these anxieties of what people think of you, what your mates will think of you, saying, oh, they've changed or he's changed. Just, if you're worried about this stuff, try and do these baby steps about putting yourself out there if you are scared, because I can sit here and say like, you could be anything you want to be, but I appreciate me saying that. You might not be able to internalise it, because if someone else would have told me that, I wouldn't have been. I know I didn't. So it's just something I actually learned for myself. So I think my advice for someone, if they are looking to put yourself out there, is to just do little baby steps. Like my first thing for when I was starting fitness stuff, like I was just experimenting. I put out like a fitness video on my Instagram page. Everyone was really supportive, and with this support I had from people, like it kind of shut all my anxieties down. And these small increments, naturally you're going to gain more confidence. And to talk about that further, about forgetting what people think, so those likes or those views you might get in the video, like try and not let that affect your mindset. So a little bit of stoicism, like basically not letting this stuff affect what you're thinking. Just appreciate all you can do is kind of stress about the stuff that you can control. So what you can't control, you need to stop thinking about that, because ultimately it's going to give you anxieties and it isn't going to help you moving forward. You're going to stop doing stuff because you're going to be fearful of what people are thinking about you. And one quote I saw which kind of backs this theory up is, forget what noun you want to be, instead what verb you want to do. And this quote kind of resonated with me a little bit, because it kind of like, stop thinking about that end point, start like appreciating the process and really try and be present in the process, because that is the most fun part. Like often when I ran the marathon, even though like it was a great feeling, like the next few days after, like I wasn't still really like hyped about me running that marathon in that time. So like, by me enjoying that process was very important, because otherwise it's like, what are you doing it for if you're just spending a certain amount of time working for something if you're not enjoying it? I hope that's a reminder to enjoy the process and to not beat yourself up too much about the results, because you can't control the results. Your first videos, if you wanted to start a YouTube video, are going to be your worst videos, but this can be related to anything that you want to start. Like I have mates that make brilliant art pictures and they paint and stuff. I have a few friends that do that. And for me, because I can't paint, I don't know anything about drawing either. Like I see their stuff and I just see the end product, and that's what generally happens on social media these days. You see that person with the body that you envy and you see the end product, but what you don't see is the amount of graft, the amount of work behind the scenes that that person is putting in to get into that skill level. So don't be put off by the process. Like if you want to get good at anything, you just have to keep showing up. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know this is a little bit different from me again, but it's something that I thought may help people a bit more, because I don't have a big following at this moment in time. Therefore I felt like it would be more valuable, because if you like, I'm still under the bracket of judgment from people, because I'm not validated yet, if you like. I don't have that blue tick or anything. So I just wanted to make a video like this because I felt like it would help a few people out, because this is something that I wish I would have heard of before, but in all honesty I don't know if I would have been able to internalise it like I was saying earlier. But hopefully if this helps one person, then I've done my job right. But just remember to have a little bit of perspective and try and change your perspective if possible, if you are thinking like this, of enjoy the process. And remember, if you're a beginner at something, you should be bad at it. So try not to think about what people are thinking about you, for example. And I guarantee if all of your friends are as close as they think they are, if you start putting out videos or whatever it is you want to start to do, they will generally support you, and that's what I found. Like, I was a little bit insecure about what people would start thinking about me, like, who does he think he is now, like, trying to give this advice and whatever. But all my mates were very supportive about it. I know this isn't fitness related, but I think this kind of stuff completely relates to fitness, because by me speaking about my jiu-jitsu and how I learn to learn, if you like, naturally it would help all my sports. And I took that mindset of how I got good at jiu-jitsu when I started running. So I only started running in January, and to get to the level I am at now, I would not have been able to do without the research of how to get better at running. So I felt like this would kind of help people have a little bit more of a holistic approach and seeing the full picture.